Brad, how many folks do we have in right now?
We're at 4 or 5.
Okay, we'll just give it a minute.
Yeah.
We're up to like 18 or something right now.
Sorry about that. Let me know when you do go live so that I know to start to break.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go live, Ms. Vanderstoel. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight for our Parent University. We're very, very excited to share with you our work with Canvas, and also look forward to the opportunity of using this system as an opportunity to partner with our parents in best supporting teaching and learning at home. To give everyone a little bit of context of where we started and where we are now, we began in the middle of March. We went to distance learning. We had prepared our staff, most of our staff, with Google Classroom and with Zoom. And as we continued down that path, we felt that it was our responsibility and it was an opportunity to look for a much more robust, richer learning platform for our students. And we vetted a few different programs, and we felt that Canvas was going to be the learning management system, which would provide us the level of depth, the level of richness, rigor, an opportunity for us to be able to provide classrooms and learning opportunities that were engaging, that were dynamic, and that would ensure that our students were connected and we're looking forward to class each and every day. Part of the system, part of the reason why we chose the system was also the ability to have our parents become part of the classroom or to become observers of the classroom, which we felt was very, very important. So the work, we still have a lot of work ahead of us. I just want to be able to take a few seconds to be able to recognize a few people who really, really helped and supported the onboarding of Canvas over the summer and who are currently supporting our teachers. I just want to thank Corey Julius, Jose Diaz, Rebecca, Mary for their commitment and for their support, and also thank our amazing teachers at the elementary and at the middle for the heavy lifting that took place over the summer and the hard work that they're still doing to be able to make Canvas a powerful tool for teaching and learning for our children. I also want to thank our elementary school principal, Bowders, and Dr. David Chiaretta for supporting in our efforts with Canvas. And on that note, I'm going to turn the mic over to Corey Julius. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.
Hi there, I'd like to welcome you to our first Parent University this fall. We're glad you're here. A couple things, if you can wait to ask questions in the Q&A during our breakout sessions. So tonight we will have kind of a main group session all together, and then we will be dividing up into two middle school parents can stay here with in this session, and then elementary school parents will be moving into a breakout room with, or a breakout session with Rebecca Goins and Mary Finley. I know we have translators here for Spanish, and we also have our ASL interpreters. So if you need those services, make sure that you click on those buttons at the bottom of your screen. We are in a Zoom webinar right now, so the chat is disabled for you unless we are, I believe it's disabled at this point, or if we can share with you, but you can't share with us. So again, use the Q&A after we break out into our sessions. Again, I'm Corey Julius. I'm the teacher librarian at Albert Einstein Middle School. I'm also the IB coordinator. So I try to keep the spirit and the practice of IB alive at our school. And I want to let the other people introduce themselves on our panel tonight. So go ahead and do that.
Hi, my name is Jose Diaz. I'm the Dean of Students at Albert Einstein. I'm also the Canvas LMS Administrator. I'll talk afterwards.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Gullins. I'm the teacher librarian at the elementary school.
Hi, I'm Mary Finley, and I am a third grade teacher at the elementary school.
Hi, and I'm Andy Trackus, the principal of the middle school.
All right,
Okay.
Rebecca Gullins here. We're going to be going quickly through the agenda. We just went through item 1, the welcome and intros and our introduction to Zoom. Jose is going to take us through what is an LMS or learning management system. We're going to watch a short video that will introduce you to Canvas and some of the features available on Canvas. And then we're going to go to our breakout sessions. The middle school session is going to cover assessment in the MYP, that's the middle years program, and how it looks in Canvas. And the elementary school is going to go over how to help your student navigating and using Canvas.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So what is an LMS? Obviously, that stands for Learning Management System, and it's basically a software application. Many of you may have had experience with an LMS in college, maybe not in high school, depending on how old you are. But the advent of LMS actually goes back to the 90s. Many of you are familiar with Google Classroom, which is a basic foundational LMS. Canvas and Schoology are two of the top 3. And a part of the vetting process, which Mr. Trackus spoke about, began in March, and we looked at several LMSs, including our previous one, which was ManageBack. While ManageBack was great for IB and really had that niche, we were looking at our systems and anticipating that we were going to be fully online and to be able to deliver, all of the education that we really wanted over distance learning. The entire vetting process took actually several weeks, and we looked at several data points, and that's how we came to decide on Canvas. Now, there are lots of different LMSs that have very, very similar features, but this combined with the ability to message back and forth and to track analytics so that we can better track engagement. Now, normally, and this goes to where we are in our adoption of Canvas. Normally, many schools start off with a pilot period. Obviously, we did not have that opportunity. So some of this piloting actually took place with some of our teachers at the middle school who jumped in and let us guinea pig some things out. But normally, pre-pandemic, rolling out a brand new LMS, the recommended time was anywhere from 90 days to 6 months, depending on your individual situation. But because we weren't afforded that opportunity with the pandemic, Canvas, along with many of other educational technology services, whittled that down to about 90 days. Now, with that said, we are still in the process of developing our systems and protocols to best serve our students. And our teachers have really been working hard to make sure that we're all uniformed and we're all aligned. So if there are any questions, we'll have some information where you can reach out to us if there is still something that you would like to understand better, or something that you have a suggestion or an idea, please share that with us. We are all pretty smart people, but none of us is smarter than all of us combined. So I appreciate that, and many of you may have even had experience working with Canvas prior. All right, so after this slide, we're just gonna play a short video that kind of gives a very, very general overview of what Canvas is able to do.
Meet Amy Peterson. Amy has 2 kids, Tucker and Jane. Tucker is in the 8th grade and loves world history. Jane is in the 3rd grade and enjoys science projects. Their school uses Canvas to facilitate student learning. Amy wants to be involved in her kids' education, not to do it for them, but to help them be successful and build confidence as learners. Amy wants to check their grades, view assignment due dates and the instructions, follow Amy and Tucker's calendars, and communicate easily with teachers. Amy hears about the Canvas parent app in an email from the school. Both kids' teachers use Canvas and want to make sure parents can easily stay connected. Amy searches for Canvas Parent in the App Store for her mobile device. After it downloads, Amy searches for her school district in the search bar. When she finds it, she then sees the option to sign in. Amy does not have her own Canvas account yet, so she selects Parents of a Canvas User, Create Account. She enters her name, her email address, and creates a password, but does not have a student pairing code. Tucker creates a pairing code from his account by opening his account settings from the global navigation bar. He selects Pair with Observer and gives that code to Amy. She can now see Tucker's classes and grades on the app's home screen. Jane is still in elementary school, so Amy gets her pairing code from Jane's teacher and easily adds it on the app. Now Jane is all set up with the Canvas Parent app as her sidekick in supporting her kids' education. To make sure she stays up to date on both kids' accounts, Jane sets up her alerts and notifications. On her phone or tablet, Amy selects Manage Students and then selects Tucker. She sets her preferences on when and about what she would like Canvas to alert her. She does the same for Jane. As Amy finishes choosing her notification settings, Jane comes bounding into the house without the coat she was wearing when she left for school. On the app, Amy opens her inbox, selects Jane's class, and sends a quick message to Jane's teacher about the missing coat. That night, before sitting down to dinner, Amy checks Tucker's classes and grades. He's doing pretty well. She also checks the calendar and notices that Tucker has a test coming up in a few days, and then helps Tucker organize his notes and create a study plan after dinner. She notices in her alerts section an announcement about a field trip to the local museum for Tucker's world history class, and a request for volunteer parent chaperones. Amy sends a quick message through the Canvas inbox to volunteer as a chaperone. Amy glances at the calendar and notices that Jane has a science project coming up. She looks at the assignment and notices a list of supplies and instructions for how to submit the assignment. Amy sets a reminder to buy the supplies. That night, Jane sits at the computer with Amy and they make a plan for Jane's project. Later that week, Amy helps Jane finish the project and helps her submit before the due date. After a long week of extracurricular activities, Amy sees a notification on her Canvas Parent app about a missing assignment in one of Tucker's classes. She reads the instructions posted on Canvas and asks Tucker how she can help him complete the assignment. That night, Amy sits with Tucker and helps him upload a picture to submit his assignment. Even though the assignment is still flagged as late and Tucker lost some points, it's still turned in for grading. Like Amy Peterson, you can also support your students' learning and know what's going on in their academic lives. You can download it for free in your app store. You can also log on to Canvas as an observer through your web browser. Also, check out the Canvas guides for observers in the Canvas community.
Okay, thank you. I will turn it over to Corey.
Mary.
I'm going to speak about just how we would, in particular, log in through the AEA website. In the top right corner, you see there is a red button that is prominent. It's the top button on our AEA homepage. Once you click that button, then you will see that Canvas login. And if you are going to log in as a student, you would click Student Login. If you are logging in as a parent, you would click Parent Login. There are specific videos here to support you with finding those QR codes or pairing codes. And the presentation will be made available at the end, so you're welcome to look at those on your own if you need any support with that. And the next slide, it deals with organizing multiple students. And if you have a student in two students in different grades or two students in the same grade, you may want to organize their course cards with a course nickname or change the color of the filter over their course card, which is what you see on the dashboard when you log in. So the instructions are here for how to make those changes. Any course nicknames that you make or course color changes are only seen on your devices. They're not seen on the teacher end. And there is a video that can walk you through that as well.
Okay, are we at this part of the presentation now?
We are already there.
Okay. So I can't remember who's supposed to do this slide, but I'll go ahead and just say that if you are an elementary parent and want to listen to more specifics about how Canvas works with elementary classes and students, then we want you to join this, this Zoom meeting. And if you are a middle school parent, and then you just stay in this room and we'll give it a minute and let the elementary parents exit into their new Zoom meeting with their presenters. This link is in the chat as well. So you could copy and paste it from the chat if you open the chat session. Okay. Let's see if there's anyone else who's going to leave. And Jose, for some reason, I can see that there are Q&As, but I can't access them. So I know Mr. Diaz is going to be keeping up with the Q&A. Okay, looks like we're down to 39. I think I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Oh, so I am gonna skip over a bunch of slides. We are gonna go down here. Okay, so I want to start a little bit before we dive into Canvas with what the middle years program looks like in the middle school. A middle years program in IB is usually 5 years long. So it usually runs from 6th grade to 10th grade. It consists of these content areas. In IB, all of these content areas are considered of equal importance. In addition to that, there is a community project that happens in the 3rd year or 8th grade, or a personal project in the 10th grade or the 5th year. Along with the diploma years program and the elementary school, we talk about approaches to learning and the IB learner profile and international mindedness. And those are all sort of interwoven into the courses that we, the content that we teach. A big key of understanding both if you have been a parent and used ManageBack before and trying to figure out Canvas is understanding how we assess students in the MYP, which is very different than how students are traditionally assessed in the United States or in California. So I'm going to show you another video. The music is a little annoying. There is no dialogue or no talking. So if you just can read the screens or listen to the interpreter, you're not missing out on any words. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that next. There we go. Okay, I know that that kind of went fast, but at least it kind of gives you an idea of how complex and thorough and somewhat complicated IB assessment is, both for teachers and for the rest of us to interpret what students are doing. In addition to this presentation, which will be available on our website, there is also, whoops, sorry. Yeah, on our website, there is also more information on the homepage that will lead you to more information about the IB program and how we use it at our school, including our assessment policy, which is a good but dry read. Okay, so something from the video that I just want to impress on you again is that in IB learning, teaching and learning, there are formative assessments and what we call summative assessments. And formative assessments are basically all the opportunities a teacher gives a student to practice skills and learn knowledge. It's like soccer practice for a soccer game. So it's all of those practices that lead up to the soccer game. It gives the coach or the teacher a snapshot of how a student understands material. It takes a variety of forms. It can be quizzes, classwork, homework, discussions, just about anything that the teacher thinks will help a student practice and or demonstrate their learning. And then finally, there's a summative assessment. This is the game time. This is like this actual soccer game. So if a student has been coming to practice regularly and working on the skills that the coach has been providing them, you can kind of guess and hope that they'll do pretty well on the summative because they've got all the skills that they need for their summative or their soccer game. And that is what a summative assessment is in IB. It's game time for students. It's graded according to the IB criteria. And it's often a project or an essay or a test. It's a little more extended than the formative practices. And we try to post grades for summative assessments 2 weeks after the due date. So that gives teachers who often have 200 students to assess time to go through the criteria and carefully assess students. So you don't see summative assessments. We usually do 1, 2, maybe 3 at the most a semester. That's a semester is from August through January. And then in IB as well, our final grades are not until the very end of the year. So we are looking at student progress across the entire year. We have progress reports at our school every 9 weeks, and it's kind of a check-in to see how is your student doing. It would be like talking to the coach, about how your student is doing, and if, say they're in soccer practice, how's practice going? And that's kind of what our progress reports are like. So we will have a chance for a progress report right before student conferences or parent-teacher conferences in November before Thanksgiving break. Okay, moving on. So now you have a little bit of an idea of what IB assessment is supposed to look like. And now this is an image of what is using Canvas with IB assessment, what it's like. And so those of you who used ManageBack as our system last year and have for years know that it is a difficult system to navigate. And there are many, many benefits to using Canvas. And in our journey of learning how to use Canvas, we are still figuring out the very best way to communicate IB assessment. So we're still working on that. It's a work in progress for teachers, and it's a work in progress for everyone to kind of understand how are we going to really show how students are doing with IB assessment criteria. So while we're in process, there are 3 general places you can go to in Canvas to kind of figure out what is my student learning and how can I tell if they're doing okay. And so those 3 places are the calendar, the grades page in Canvas, and even the learning mastery and grades, which should be more populated as we go along. I'll show you what that looks like. So the first thing is, and these slides are a little busy, but I wanted to show you when you log into Canvas, there'll be a navigation bar off to the left and you'll see calendar. Now the calendar for the student account or the observer account will show you a week, a month, or an agenda, which is a daily list of activities. We suggest you use the month view or the agenda view. The week view is very busy and a little confusing. So looking at a student's month view, you'll see, that various days are busier than others. Also, you can subscribe to a calendar feed as the observer or the parent with Google or iCal. And so can your student if they happen to have an account. The other thing I wanted to point out was in their calendar, there's a plus sign here for students or you to add events that other reminders like a dentist appointment or soccer practice, for example. So that tailors their calendar you know, it adds in whatever else is happening in their lives. You can add it here if you want. So the reason why I'm showing the calendar as far as missing homework, first of all, you can see what their assignments are and how busy they need to be. And you can also see, and I'm going to show you a close-up, that assignments they've completed are crossed out and assignments that are not done are not crossed out. So here's a kind of a zoom in of a week in the calendar, and you can see that some of these are crossed out. And then as a parent, I might be looking at, well, why isn't this crossed out? Did they do it? And before you go to accuse your child of not turning in their homework, I mean, maybe that's the case, but you might want to look and just check. And so to check and see, maybe find more information about this assignment, I'm going to click on it. And when I click on it, some details show up about the assignment. And this says, by completing the slides, you have completed the assignment. No need to submit. So apparently this assignment was completed outside of Canvas, and it's not going to show up in Canvas. So at this point, I could ask my student, did you do the meet the element pair deck in science? I couldn't tell from your calendar, and hopefully your student will be honest with you and say yes or no. Okay, so moving on from the calendar, another place in the once you're into a course, there's another navigation bar here on the left-hand side, and there's assignments here. So if I click on assignments, it'll show as a parent or the observer a list of different assignment categories. If a child is missing some assignments in a course, they'll show up here, overdue assignments. So I know that this kid has missed a couple things they needed to turn in. Here's some future assignments coming. And then there's some other categories here. So here's a couple other examples. This is a kid who has quite a few assignments missing, and this is just one class, because you do have to click on every course and kind of look through them if you're worried. And then upcoming assignments. And this is what it looks like if there are no overdue assignments in a course. You'll see there's nothing here, just past assignments. So this kid is all caught up. So that's good news. Okay, the next place you can go in your courses, and here's like the global navigation again, and go to all courses, and you pick your course and do history and look at grades. And there are two ways of looking at grades. And now this is going to get a little busy, but I just want to show you a couple things. So part of what you will see are these funny little icons. This means that a student has turned something in, and it gives you details about what they turned in. So this is a document file, for example. Here's number 2 is a graded discussion. This is a quiz, a text entry. So that's just a submission of they just write right into the assignment and turn it in. They might submit a link or a video. There is sometimes a score is hidden if the instructor is grading. And down below somewhere, there's a dash if a teacher turns in or requests that a student uses an external tool. So that means they've used, for example, Google Drive, and they've assigned an assignment. And through Google Drive, they have given an assignment out to each and every student. When the student turns it in to Canvas, it's not indicated in the grade book. So it's hard to tell that that student has turned it in until it is graded. So these mean that the student has turned it in, but there's no, they have not been graded. Once they are graded, a score will show up here, and scores can show up in many ways. And because, again, IB, you use a 1 through 8, a 0 through 8 descriptor, a number that represents a descriptor for criteria. There's going to be various points here, I'll show you, but not all assignments are going to be through 0 through 8 because that is for the IB criteria. And so this is where things can get a little confusing. So let me show you, and where we need your patience with us a little bit as we work through how best to communicate what the teachers and students are doing in the classroom. The instruction is happening, the IB instruction is happening. They are framing the lessons as through an IB philosophy, but our assessment piece in Canvas is still catching up with that. So once a student has turned something in, there will be a blue dot here that indicates this assignment was actually graded. Now you'll see in our in our courses, a lot of assignments haven't been graded. And I think some of those are because they are practice, but they're not necessarily something a teacher is eyeballing. However, most things will eventually be graded in Canvas. Now, already there's a no-no here. We won't have letter grades or percentages in our grade books. This is an example that's outside of our school. But so anyway, you'll see that something's graded. This is how many points were possible. And then there are other additional ways that teachers can provide feedback. So you'll see that they might make a comment, they might have a scoring detail or a rubric detail. And you can click on any of those and there'll be some messages that pop up here that give further explanation. This little exclamation point means that this is not graded, doesn't count towards a final grade. You'll see many of these in your students' coursework. It does not mean that the teacher is not looking at it, but in IB, formative assessments don't really count towards the grade. Again, they are like a soccer practice or a sports practice where you are practicing skills and learning, and the teacher is looking at what the student is doing and how well they are performing, but that final grade is really the summative assessment that or the soccer game, that's the big important piece. And so just because this is here doesn't mean that it's not important. It just means that, you know, it's a practice. Okay, so something to keep in mind when you're looking through their grade books. I'm going to show you another quick video about the two types of grades in the MYP. They mentioned it in the other video, but I want to just review this again with you and a little bit more about what the numbers mean in IB, the 0 through 8 and the 1 through 7. What those are not true numbers, they're just symbols for a description of words that describe how a student is doing. So I'm going to go ahead and play this again for you. Same terrible music. Okay, so again, that may have been a little bit confusing, but I just wanted to, again, let you see how sort of different IB assessment is and how teachers really focus a lot on the formatives and trying to, and also some summatives, but in the criteria, really looking at the criteria before they assign a final grade. So there's just a lot of time for practice for students. So this next slide, I wanted to just let you know that when you are going to see a variety of grading choices that teachers are making at this point in time, while we're trying to figure out how best to communicate how students are doing. So some of the ways that you may see scores that don't look like that 1 to 7 or the 0 to 8 for IB, these are mostly for formative, well, really all for formative. You'll see that some teachers are going to have a check mark that means that's a complete grade. So that would be a formative assessment the teacher has done, something they've done in class where you know, they've practiced and all right, they did okay. So we're going to just check it off. They made it to practice. They dribbled the ball 3 times through the cones and they're good. You may see some points. We're still figuring out how to show points. This shouldn't be really, I mean, it doesn't mean anything in IB. It just means it looks like maybe there was a quiz for 10 points and the student was able to master 9, you know, when they were practicing, they got 9 out of 10 right. And we know as parents in traditional grading system that's pretty good. So, you know, even though we're not going to use this as part of the grade, it does show us that the student was working pretty hard. You may see an incomplete grade, which would be an X. So instead of a check, there might be an X. And that means the student didn't finish the assignment or didn't turn it in. What you should not see in the grades when you look at the student's grading sheet in Canvas is a letter grade or a GPA scale, this 4.0, or a percentage. So teachers know they have all these options when they're creating their assignments, and they know that they're supposed to not use these 3. Especially the first few weeks of school, you may see some of this as we were figuring out what we needed to do in order to best follow the philosophy of IB. You may see an excused assignment. So that means excused here, and then it doesn't really count. And then also a no submission is this dash. And again, no submission could also mean that the grade was, the assignment was submitted with an external tool. So this doesn't necessarily mean a missing assignment. I would be more concerned probably about the X's, you know, and the dashes if these 2 are showing up a lot. And then again, this exclamation point means that doesn't count towards your final grade. So that's a good indicator that it is a formative assessment and that it is being eyeballed by the teacher, but it's not weighted towards the final grade. So those are some things you're going to be able to see in the grade book. Another couple red flags or indicators are if you see a lot of late work for your student. So this means they did turn it in, but it hasn't been graded yet because it just shows a document was turned in. It's late. So the student turned it in late, but they did get it in. So that's good. Might be a discussion about time management skills with your student. If the assignment is missing and it's past the due date, it will say missing. Now our teachers know they don't have a time when they should not accept an assignment. So assignment can if a student wants to make up an assignment, they can turn it in and it will change it to a late assignment. But if you see your student has a lot of missing tagged assignments in their grade book, that's some concern. You might want to talk to your student about that and see what's going on with them, as the teacher probably will too. Okay, the next slide. This is kind of putting it all together. So this is a bigger view of what the grade book would look like. An assignment, the due date, the status, it'll say missing, late, or nothing if it's turned in. This is what type of assignment it was. This is how many points. And you can see this assignment down here, blue dot, it was turned in. It was a link and there's a comment. So I would probably need to read the comment in order to figure out what the teacher decided to give the student. It's a comment only. Again, if it's a formative, that might be the way that the teacher graded it. You can also print out a summary of the grades. This may be the way that we go with progress reports for October, because we're trying to figure out the format for the progress report, as that was done for us in ManageBack, and we have to figure that out with Canvas. The second part of the gradebook. So in the gradebook, you'll see a tab that says assignments, which is where we were, or where this is actually, all of this. Or you'll see learning mastery. And I just wanted to point out this learning mastery to you. Not all of our teachers, the goal is that they will have the learning mastery up and running. Some of them are still working on that. Again, we're all in process here. So if I click on the learning mastery, what this is where we keep track of what we call outcomes, or the criteria in the IB assessment. So this is a different way of looking at the grades. So in this particular class, math, the teacher has also imported some outcomes from the Common Core. But what we're going to be interested in, and these say, like, you'll see 0 out of 2 mastered, 0 out of 3 mastered. The teacher hasn't actually assigned anything here, so or graded anything. We're not really going to pay too much attention to that. But if you do see in one of the outcomes, and probably it'll be under something like this, year 3 means 8th grade, year 3 mathematics. And these are the rubrics, or the criterion, not the rubrics, the criterion for the 4 criterion for math. It looks like this teacher has had 2 rubrics, and all of our summative assessments and some of the formatives that are sort of practice summatives are use rubrics, so that they get put into this learning mastery part of the gradebook. And so we can tell that the student has had 2 chances to really measure up their skills to the IB criteria and see how are their skills aligned with what they should be in the criteria. And this score is the highest of the two chances that they had so far. So they look like they're doing pretty good in these these different alignments. And I will just show you a little more detail for that. If I clicked on that alignment, this one alignment, you can see that the outcome, it looks pretty messy, but this is the way we've had to do it so far. The points are here, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. There's a lot of verbiage in IB, lots of words to describe how a student is doing. A mastery for IB is a 3-4 range. So this kid scored a 6, and we can't quite see, but if the screenshot went down farther, you'd see that there's a little purple mark here where the teacher said, okay, this assignment, the student performed at a 6 level. And even though it says points, it's not really points. A 6, it means all of these words. It's just a shortcut to describe all of these words that are in a 6. Okay, so it is very complicated in Canvas. So these are kind of the grades that the teacher will be eyeballing for final grades. They'll be looking to see how a student has, they'll look at the grade book, regular grade book, they'll look at this, and this is how they will assess and get the final grades for a student when it approaches the report card in January, end of January, and then semester 1 and semester 2 in June. All right, I wanted to remind you again, this is in our assessment policy that's on our website, but this is, I showed you all those words that go with the criteria, but this is really the words, these are some of the verbs and descriptors that go with these score explanations. So 0 through 8, an adequate, we forget, a 3-4 is grade level. And if it's real hard to wrap around this kind of a grading system, it's kind of like a C or C+. So when a teacher is looking at what it takes to get a 3-4, they're thinking, what is it that I expect a 6th, 7th, or 8th grader to be able to do? What's the grade level? So when your students come home with a 3 out of an 8, that shows that they did some learning. They had an adequate amount of learning. You may not be happy with a 3-4, but it is an adequate amount of learning. Just like you may not be happy with your student getting a C in a class, then you might want to be pushing them this direction. But this is considerable, substantial sometimes consistent, thorough, effective. So they're consistently substantial. So again, this is how these aren't percentages. These are just descriptors, symbols, numeric symbols that represent all of these words in IB. And then this is the final grading. So we have those criteria grading 0 through 8 that again, you have in 4 criteria per subject. So A, B, C, D. A teacher assigns in those criteria, those 0 through 8 grades. Then those 4 criteria, those points add up to create a final grade. So for example, if a student had gotten an 8 in all criteria, they would have a total of 32 points, which would put them in the range for a 7. And you can see, and I only have this in English here, but you can see that an 8 produces high quality, frequently innovative work. So you really have to read this descriptor to understand what your student is capable of. A 6 is this range. So you see that a 3 and a 4 in this 1 through 7 produces work of acceptable quality, produces good quality work. So, you know, we're always wanting to push our kids this high, and that's awesome. But you have to remember that also they're making progress. They are learning. This is showing learning if they have 3 4s in their final grades. So I just want to remind you of that. It's hard to wrap your mind around when you are switching from a regular grading system to IB. It can be kind of confusing. Okay, moving on from that. We have just a reminder that there is a student app and a parent app on your phone. So if your student has a phone or you have a phone, you can download those apps onto your phone. The student app, we really encourage students to try to use a Chromebook or a computer to do their schoolwork. So if a phone is the last resort and they have their phone, great. But it's really hard to get all your work done on a phone. So if you are missing a computer at home or you still need one, be sure and contact the school and request a student Chromebook. It's totally worth it to have a Chromebook in your house for each student. They shouldn't need to share a computer. They should each have their own. But they can turn their work in, especially if it's a photo of their work. They can see their calendar. And they can communicate as a student with their teacher very easily through this app. So if you're able to have the app, it's a good thing to have. Same with the parent. You can see their courses just like as an observer, assignments and announcements. Communicate with the teacher very easily. You can't turn in work for your student, however, so they would need to do that themselves. That's especially true for elementary students who, you know, parents are really working hard to help their students turn in work, that sometimes it's a lot harder for the younger students to do that. So just to make you aware that there are those apps there. Again, where to find more information. If you go to our website, aeacms.org, that stands for Albert Einstein Academy Charter Middle School, and look for this Canvas login and distance learning resources button. It's right at the top. You will find more information out about Canvas and about distance learning. And then these slides, all of the slides, including the elementary slides, they're all grouped together here and will be available on our website, and I believe will be messaged out to you as participants. And so I believe that's the end of my my part, or at least my talking part. So if there are questions, you could put them in the Q&A, and yeah. Looks like, okay, that's good. So Jose, I can't access the questions, so.
Yeah, I did. There's not too many right there, but if I know there's a lot of information to absorb for everybody. So Corey, do you have the page for the support email or a way for us to reach out, or for our panelists to reach out to us?
You mean the Canvas support, the support from the website?
So actually I have one question here. The assignments aren't crossed out that are done. Do I have a wrong setting?
No, I would check with your student to see again if it was an external tool submission. So if it was a Google Doc that they needed to turn in, it may not show up as submitted in Canvas. So you might click on that assignment and read the details and see if it says it was an external tool or if the teacher had them turn in the work a different way than through the Canvas portal first. And then maybe ask your student, hey, did you miss this assignment? And see what they have to say. And are there any other? Are you looking at the questions?
Yes. I'm leaving our email in the chat.
Oh,
Is that
perfect.
Corey?
Okay. Yes.
Some of these we may have to look at if it's a specific student question for a specific issue, because we'll maybe have to check their settings or whatever it might be. See Julius at aeacs.org, and you can reach out to either one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this other question, again, this might be a student specific. Submitted assignments in a course and they show up as missing. This happens frequently in one subject, but in other subjects, every assignment is marked correctly. So again, that might be dependent on what the teacher has in terms of settings. If you can email myself and Corey, and I'll put it in the chat again, then we can look at those specific situations, because that might not be a system-wide issue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I have, my student has lost work because Canvas doesn't save like Google Classroom. Is there a fix or option to make sure it saves while they are working on it?
No. ManagePack was the same way actually for all of us. And it's kind of like where I think maybe Word does now on PCs. I'm not sure. I don't ever use it anymore. But so what I've told people just is if you're really worried about, like if they're doing a text response, something that needs to be saved that they can forget to save, maybe create it in a Google Doc first and then copy and paste it into Canvas. And that way it's saved in both places. And I'm sure almost all of us have had that experience where you've only saved something in one place and then somehow it goes, mysteriously missing, or your computer dies, or, so it's always good to have backup in 2 places, especially for those rich content editor when they're asking them to directly respond to something in an assignment. Yeah, if they don't push save, it doesn't save. And especially a longer response, I've noticed, if a student is going to finish their work in that text box, they really, I've suggested teachers don't make long assignments that are directly put into Canvas because there isn't a really way to save it, a draft. So again, it's better to just have the student open a doc and write their draft there and then copy and paste when they're done. Just another thing we've learned.
There was another question here. Are the Zoom lessons recorded and available via Canvas for review? I know that is something that we are working on. I know a couple teachers have been able to do it, but our storage is a consideration right now because videos do take up quite a bit of space. And then here is another question. How do we access grade through Canvas if the teacher sent work through Google Classroom? Corey, do you want to answer that one?
If a teacher is still assessing things through Google Classroom, the goal is that teachers are doing their grading in Canvas. And so if they are assessing things in a Google Classroom, There is a way for you as well to request access as a parent into the classroom. I would hope that those teachers are transferring their grades into Canvas. That is the goal. So I would reach out to those teachers if you are not able to access those grades and ask them to please put them in Canvas or to give you access to Google Classroom as a parent.
Another question here is there a way late assignments can be submitted after the deadline? Yes, I would contact the teacher if there is an extenuating circumstances. Some teachers have different policies in terms of when an assignment is able to be turned in. For example, quizzes that might be different, maybe only given that day. But if it's, for example, a project or an essay and there was an extenuating circumstances, a teacher can always reopen an assignment, and I would just communicate directly with the teacher.
And in general, for equity purposes, projects like that, they can assign a date that the assignment's open, they can assign a date that it's due, but they should not have a date for available until. It should be accessible throughout most of the grading period. And so they're also working on that. We kind of figured that out as well. But again, like if it's a quiz where, you don't want kids passing the answers to the next day's kids as much as possible. I mean, it's hard to do some of that on online anyway, or to stop it. But in general, yeah, so email your teacher. They were working on making sure all their assignments are still accessible for turning in late work.
And then there's another one here, how notification the student go to the school for email. I'm not sure exactly what's that. Go ahead.
Well, Jose, I think you can answer. I think that means, how their email notifications, Canvas is still not notifying students.
Yes.
Some students regularly in their email box. So you really have to have the student go to Canvas and check the inbox in Canvas for those notifications. Right, Jose?
Yes. So there's I don't want to get too technical here, but there's a higher level of filter on student emails. So for some reason, some of them are getting blocked. And we've been working to try to work that around with Google and Canvas. But the best way really is to just jump into Canvas, and all of the messages that teachers will send will always be in a student's Canvas, whether it's an announcement or in their inbox. And that way they don't ever miss anything. I think that's it, Corey.
Okay, well, if that's everything, thank you so much for coming. We want to thank you so much for your patience as we work out how and we become more and more expert at using Canvas. We're all still kind of at the beginning stages of figuring this out. I do believe Canvas is going to be a great tool for us. It already has been much easier to communicate with students and with parents and teachers. And I think that's a great boon from this, using this platform. Again, we're still figuring out the best way to communicate IB grades as we go along. And so again, I ask for your patience as we do that, and always reach out to your teachers if you have any concerns, or contact Jose or I, and we can help you with that as well.
And thank all of you for being patient. I know this is a tough time, and tough for especially those with families and several kids. We're gonna make it. Okay, so stick with us and please lean on us for any support that you need.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
I'm going to go ahead and leave the webinar open until the elementary is finished, so that if anyone else is coming through, they can hop onto that elementary.
Okay, I gotta go to class.